This story is written and narrated to celebrate the brilliance and courage of Margaret Hamilton, a woman whose mind helped humanity touch the stars. Based on true historical events during NASA's Apollo era, this story explores how one woman standing in a room full of men and machines wrote the code that would carry humankind beyond the boundaries of Earth and into history. It is a story of intellect, resilience, and the unshakable belief that even the smallest line of code can change the course of destiny. The year was 1969, a time when computers filled entire rooms, men wore suits like armor, and women were told their place was anywhere but the control room. Yet, among the engineers and mathematicians working on America's greatest dream, the Apollo program, stood a young woman with calm eyes, sharp intelligence, and a determination that outshone even the rockets they built. Her name was Margaret Hamilton, and she wasn't just writing computer code. She was crafting the language that would take humanity to the moon. Margaret wasn't born into power, privilege, or fame. She grew up in a small town in Indiana, where the stars above her seemed like distant mysteries rather than destinations. But curiosity was in her nature. She had the kind of mind that asked not just why, but what if. After studying mathematics at Earlham College, she planned to pursue graduate studies. Yet life, as it often does, had other plans. She married young, became a mother, and sought work to support her family. And in doing so, found herself at the dawn of something extraordinary: the birth of software engineering. Back then, computer programming was not even considered a real discipline. It was seen as women-IS work, clerical and secondary. But Margaret knew better. When she began working at MIT's instrumentation laboratory, she was part of a team building guidance systems for aircraft and spacecraft, systems that had to think faster than any human could in the most critical moments. There, surrounded by blinking lights, endless punch cards, and clattering printers, she found her purpose. When NASA announced the Apollo program, the bold mission to send men to the moon and bring them back safely, the world saw astronauts, rockets, and launch pads. Margaret saw something else: software. She knew that no matter how powerful the rocket, one wrong line of code could mean disaster, and so she took on the monumental task of designing the Apollo guidance computer, software, the digital brain that would navigate astronauts through the most dangerous journey ever attempted. Her team was small, her hours long, and her work often dismissed by those who didn't understand its importance. "It's just software," they would say. But Margaret knew better. She understood that the software wasn't just part of the mission, it was the mission. Without her code, the astronauts would be flying blind. Her nights were spent hunched over stacks of printouts, lines of code stretching into infinity, the hum of machinery keeping her company. She often brought her young daughter Lauren to the lab on weekends, a small girl wandering among giant computers while her mother quietly wrote the future. It was during one of those moments that inspiration and warning struck. Lauren, curious like her mother, pressed a key on a simulator, accidentally triggering a program that could have disrupted a real mission. Instead of scolding her, Margaret took notes. She realized that if a child could make such a mistake, so could an astronaut under pressure. That insight led her to write error detection code, safety mechanisms that would later save Apollo 11 from catastrophe. Fast forward to July 20th, 1969. The Apollo 11 lunar module, Eagle, was descending toward the moon. Millions watched, breath held, as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin prepared for landing. But suddenly, disaster struck. Alarms blared in the cockpit. 1202, 1201, computer overload. Something was wrong. In Houston, engineers scrambled. The data was confusing, the landing window was closing fast. But Margaret's code held firm. The system she designed didn't crash. It prioritized essential tasks, discarding non-critical processes to keep the mission alive. It did exactly what she had built it to do. Her code made the split-second decisions no human could, allowing Eagle to land safely with just seconds of fuel remaining. The world cheered. Men walked on the moon, and behind that triumph stood the invisible brilliance of a woman's mind. Margaret didn't seek glory. While astronauts' names were etched into history books, her work remained buried beneath pages of technical documentation and binary numbers. But in the quiet aftermath, NASA knew the truth. Without her software, there would have been no moon landing. As years passed, her field, once dismissed, gained recognition. She coined the very term software engineering, arguing that writing code required the same precision and respect as traditional engineering. At first, people laughed, but when her systems guided astronauts across 238,000 miles of space and brought them home safely, no one was laughing anymore. She had proven that the unseen architecture of logic and code could carry humanity to impossible heights. Margaret's brilliance didn't end with Apollo. Her company, Hamilton Technologies, later developed advanced software design systems that influenced generations of programmers. But for her, the Apollo code remained a personal triumph, a testament to what dedication, intellect, and courage could accomplish against all odds. The most iconic photograph of her life captures her standing beside a stack of printed code taller than she is, thousands of lines that she and her team wrote by hand. That image became a symbol of quiet revolution, a woman standing tall beside her creation, proving that intellect knows no gender. Her journey wasn't easy. She faced skepticism, dismissal, and the endless balancing act between being a mother and a pioneer in a man's world. Yet she never wavered. When asked how she managed it all, she simply said, "You have to believe in yourself and your code." That belief, that relentless self-trust, was what powered the software that powered Apollo. The climax of her story isn't just the moon landing. It is the realization that humanity, its greatest leap, wasn't a step on lunar soil, but a shift in perception. Margaret Hamilton showed the world that genius doesn't wear a uniform. It can wear a dress, carry a notebook, and raise a child, all while building the future. As the Apollo program ended and the world moved on, Margaret continued to teach, mentor, and inspire. Decades later, she finally received the recognition she long deserved. In 2016, President Barack Obama awarded her the Presidential Medal of Freedom, America's highest civilian honor, calling her work instrumental in landing humankind on the moon. As she stood on that stage, silver-haired and smiling, the world finally applauded the woman who once coded destiny line by line. Margaret Hamilton's story is not just about space. It's about possibility. It's about the belief that brilliance can come from anywhere, and that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it quietly types, tests, and trusts itself until the impossible becomes inevitable. Today, every rocket launched, every satellite orbiting Earth, every algorithm guiding humanity into the stars, all carry a piece of her legacy. She didn't just help us reach the moon. She showed us what's possible when determination and intellect refuse to bow to doubt. So the next time you gaze up at the moon, remember, its glow is reflected not only by sunlight but by the brilliance of a woman named Margaret Hamilton, who proved that even from behind a computer, one person can reach across space, touch the stars, and change the course of human history.